Last fall, I got a message from my dear friend and local drag extraordinaire, Lawrie Bird, asking me if I would be interested in making her look for TwitchCon, and of course, I was honored that she even asked, so I said yes. Lawrie is a streamer. She streams mostly in drag, I think. It's like kind of how she got her start in drag, and so she was invited to go to TwitchCon to host some panels in drag, and so I'm gonna be making her dress for those panels. And after she reached out to me, we talked a little bit about her inspiration, and her biggest inspiration was actually Kori Kings' look from the promo for her season. So the short little liquid satin, very watery looking gown. We're going to do that, but instead of doing the big piece behind the head, we talked about it, and she wants to do something that is around the shoulder instead. So we're going to be doing that, and then it will also be in the signature Twitch colors, which is purple and white. So the actual dress itself will be purple, and I'm going to be making some white gauntlets to go with it. And luckily, I have already made a dress for Lawrie before, so we already have a pre-existing pattern to work off of. I will need to make a couple changes, so let's actually dive straight into the pattern adjustments and see what we end up coming up with. Before I start making this new dress, I do need to make a couple of adjustments to the pattern. So when we did the fitting for the original dress, we did take the sides in a pretty substantial amount. So I'm just going to copy those adjustments to the pattern. That way, going forward, whenever we use this pattern, it will always be correct. So I'm just taking in the sides on the front side piece and then also on the back side piece to match. Next up, while we're working on patterns, I'm going to go ahead and make the pattern for the gauntlets. So I did measure her arm from her bicep down to her wrist, and then her bicep down to the top of her middle finger, and that's going to give me the measurements that I need to make this. So I'm going to start by drawing a straight line that will represent the length from her bicep to the top of her middle finger. That's the entire length of the whole gauntlet. Then I will go in and make marks that are horizontal that represent the bicep measurement, the elbow measurement, and the wrist measurement. Once I have those measurements sketched out, I can then go in and make my little triangular piece that will represent the part that goes over her hand, and then just connect the side pieces, and this will be my pattern piece for the gauntlet. I realized after filming this you probably couldn't see it. So this is the bicep measurement. This is the length of the arm to the finger. This marks the length of the arm from the top to the wrist. So this is the piece that will go over the hand, and then it's just contoured to fit around the bicep, the elbow, and then the wrist. So pretty simple. To try to ensure that the gauntlets don't accidentally fall down her arms, I'm adding in a piece of elastic at the top, and I'm just sewing it in with a zigzag stitch. That way it will still maintain its stretchiness, but give it a little bit more of a firm hold at the top of the glove. Now that the gauntlets are done, we can move on to the main event, which is the dress. So this base dress needs to be short to the knee and then also be strapless. And the original dress that we use this pattern for comes all the way up to the top of the neck. And so I'm just gonna simply fold that part away, and I'm also gonna fold away the part at the bottom that I don't need. That way I can cut out the shape that I need right now, but the pattern piece stays in one piece. That way I can keep using it over and over and over again. Because this dress is going to ultimately be strapless, I decided to make the lining layer a short layer that stops at the waist, and then I am adding boning to each seam. And I'm just stitching that boning straight onto the fabric. This is a ridgeline boning, which means I can just sew straight through it. So I'm just adding that on the inside, and then you will not see any of the bones once I actually put the lining in. Next up, I need to essentially make a cage that will create the piece that goes around the shoulder. And because we want this to be structural and three-dimensional, I need it to be nice and firm and able to hold itself up. So again, I'm using that same ridgeline boning that I used for the bustier, and I'm just sort of attaching it along the top and on the back to create the shape around the shoulder that we're looking for. And because I want this to be a little bit taller, I'm also going to add another layer that wraps around and then some little pieces in between that will really make it nice and 3D. Okay, I haven't checked in with y'all in a minute on this, so let me show you where I'm at. So we have the base garment put together. So we've got all the internal structure and then these pieces around the shoulder so that that can support whatever we end up doing around the top. So keep in mind, you're not going to see any of this garment. It's going to be completely covered. So there is like visible stitching. You will not see any of that stuff. Also, when I was putting together this little, I'm calling this like the cage that's going to hold up the shoulders, I was sewing these little junctions where this comes together, and it was just, I was getting very frustrated. So I switched to just stapling it into place. So I did staple it so that the back sides where the prongs are will be away from her body. So it should be completely smooth, no pain whatsoever. We've got fitting tomorrow. My goal is to perfect the fit for this, which I'm really keeping my fingers, toes, everything crossed that the fit's going to be pretty good because I made this based off of alterations we did on the other piece. So this should already be in a really good position as far as like fit goes. And then I would really like to drape like all that ruching that we're going to do. I would love to drape that on her during the fitting, and then I can just hand sew it, and then that will be done. I thought that this was going to take a lot longer than it ended up taking me, so hopefully all the hand sewing when we get to the ruching part of it won't be too bad. So that's where we're at. Yeah, so fitting next. I wish I could say that I went into this first fitting super confident, but to be honest, this draping was very intimidating because I've never done anything like this before. But really, I just let the fabric kind of guide me and fall where it wanted to. Our biggest goal when we were putting this on is just to have lots of visual interest and very beautiful lines and shapes without adding any bulk to her figure. We really wanted to make sure that we emphasized that waist still, even though there was a lot of shape going on. And I did give myself lots of extra fabric on the sides and on the hem and the top as well. I just wanted to make sure that I had a lot of extra fabric to play with when I was going to actually finish the dress. You can always cut things off, but once you cut something, it cannot come back. So I always recommend just giving yourself more than what you think you need. Okay, so let's do a post-fitting check-in. So I have the dress here. I know you saw a little bit of the fitting. So I have the fabric all pinned and clipped and all that good stuff onto here. So I am now going to be hand sewing the rest of this. So no more machine sewing for me. We got a big job ahead of us, but the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So we're just going to take this one step at a time. I'm going to start with the top shoulder piece just because I have clips on that and I don't want the clips to accidentally pop off and then we lose the shape that we created yesterday. So I'm going to do all of that first, and then everything on the actual body of the dress is safety pinned. So that's not going to come out. That will stay exactly the way that it is. So it was a perfect fit, which is great, but this fabric has no stretch to it whatsoever, and she does need to sit down. So I'm gonna add just a small panel just around the hips and the butt on the zipper, and then actually install the zipper. The zipper was just basted in. So those will be a couple finishing things I need to do as well. But let's just dive into this hand sewing. For this hand sewing, all the hard work is really already done for us because during the fitting we put the pins in the exact place they need to be to hold the shape that we want. So I'm just using them as my guide and going through and just putting a stitch everywhere we have a pin. All right, so we've made great progress here. I have tacked down every place that had a pin on it, so now there's no safety pins left. Everything is tacked into the place it needs to be. The only thing I need to do now, not the only thing, but my next step is going to be to finish all of the sides. So I'm going to start with the side seams. Basically, when I set out to do the fitting, I was going to try and wrap one piece of fabric all the way around so I wouldn't have to worry about the side seams, but just the way the fabric wanted to fall, that was not going to work. So I'm going to trim everything up, tuck everything under, and then sew everything so the side seams are finished. That will be the very next step. To finish the edges, I'm just tucking in all the raw edges and then using a running stitch to hold everything in place. Okay, it's a brand new day. Yesterday I was able to basically completely finish up the side seams. I still haven't done the very, very bottom because I'm going to do the hem very last. So that will be kind of a finishing touch, but I'm going to work on the back. So I had just basted the zipper in just like with some very loose hand basting. I'm going to take that basting out. I'm also going to add a very small 1-inch panel of some stretch velvet that I had that's the same color. You will not be able to see this. It's going to get covered up. But this is going to be to add a little bit of extra space just to the hip area. So I'm going to add that in just so there's a little bit of breathing room, and then I'm going to close the back up, and then we can do the hem, and this dress is done. So my goal is to have this finished by the end of today. It's not a goal. I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish this dress by the end of today. It's finally looking like an actual garment. When we first did the fitting, I can't hold it up with two hands, but when we first did the fitting, I was like, okay, this is looking a little bit scary, and I was starting to doubt my ability to turn it into an actual garment, but it's looking great. So we just need to do this final push, and I think it's going to be fantastic. To make the hip panel, I'm cutting a piece of fabric that is 2 inches wide because we only want it to be 1 inch when it's finished, but we need a 1/2 inch on either side for seam allowance. And then the length of this piece is the length from the bottom of the zipper to the hem. And lastly, to attach the zipper, I'm following all my normal steps for an invisible zipper. I'm just taking it a little bit more slowly than I normally would because this is going through quite a few layers of fabric. So after a lot of work, the dress is finally finished, but I do want to give a quick disclaimer before I show y'all the reveal footage. So this reveal is not beautifully shot and it's not cinematic. It's just a collection of clips that I have from both our fittings and what Lawrie actually posted on her socials. Unfortunately, once a garment leaves me and goes on to its rightful owner, I'm no longer in control of how it's photographed or anything like that. So this is the best that I could put together for y'all to see the final look. But without further ado, here is the final dress. As some last words for this project, I would just say that this was a huge test of my skills and abilities, and I had sort of an idea of how I wanted to tackle it going into it, but then of course everything was an experiment, so there were several moments in time when I was very concerned that I would not be able to make like an actual finished garment that actually looked good, but overall I'm really happy with it. I do think that it hit the brief of what she asked for, and I'm curious to know if y'all were going to tackle something like this, would you have done it sort of how I did it with like a base and then doing the draping over the top? Would you do something completely different? I'm very curious to know because this was just sort of something I came up with off the top of my head. And I'm so happy with the way that this dress fit. Overall, I'm just really happy with the patterning that I've been able to do for Lawrie. Like the first dress that I made fits so well, and then now that I've made the pattern adjustments, the dresses I've been able to make with that pattern, so I have made one more since then, have just fit perfectly, and I'm so proud of that. I did have to put the panel in the hips, but I'm gonna give myself grace on that because it was such a small change, and I didn't have to take anything apart to put it in. Like I just had to include it when I was closing up the back, so I'm gonna give myself some grace on that one. But I'm curious to know y'all's thoughts on this project. Would you try something like this? What did you think of it? And I will see y'all on the next one. Bye.